On this episode, persuasion. Hey everybody, this is the Quarter Show. Welcome to 2017. We're
episode 99.
Episode 99. One more coming. We're gonna do some, have a maybe a slightly longer episode for 100 and come up with some good ideas there. But today I wanted to talk about persuasion. I wrote this down before the end of the year. We just did we did highest ever for the year. We did highest ever for the month. We had our highest ever week. And growing, and so it's a lot of fun, and we actually really dig sales, and hopefully the show benefits you and you enjoy the content. But one thing I thought about the other day, and I wrote it down. It was like before the end of the year, and I was thinking about how important this was, and I don't talk about it that much, but is persuasion, right? And there's X factors in sales that people don't think about, and it's hard to write it in a book. It's hard to put your finger on it sometimes, because two people could say the same thing and one person says it and does it a little differently, and it worked for one and it doesn't work for the other. And so sales is a funny thing, because you can say do this exact thing and then somebody doesn't do it or gets blocked or says it to the wrong person or whatever, and the whole thing goes sideways. And one of those things is persuasion. And your persuasion is incredibly important. And I'm not talking about like trying to manipulate people, even though if you look at the dictionary, the definition of manipulation is not actually that bad. But persuasion, you don't want anything getting in the way of your persuasion. And if you allow a filter to your persuasion, you're in trouble. So what does that mean? It means when you read in a sales book and it talks about going to the decision maker, and it talks about going to the power or the right person or whatever, what you want is, you don't want any gap or any filter between you and the person you need to persuade. It's very important that you have a direct line to the person that you need to persuade, right? And this is one of the big problems where people, going to the power or going to the decision maker or going to whoever and spending time with that person. One of the reasons you want to do that is because if you don't, what are your alternatives? The alternative is that you're going through someone else who you are now relying on. So that's a problem with getting somebody to persuade for you, is that it waters down the approach, right? It waters down the approach of going to the right person and getting that person. If you rely on them, you're in trouble. You're in big trouble, because the chances are they're not going to persuade the same way you are. You know your sales pitch, you know what you do. And if you're good at selling, then you're good at persuasion. And that persuasion is very, very, very important, right? But it's important only with the right people, the people with the authority or the decision maker or the power. And so for me personally, I always want to spend my time wisely and with the right people to ensure that I am in fact persuading the right people. Because when you're with the right person and you do your job and you persuade them, the deal just happens. It comes together very quickly. And if you allow a filter and essentially that person, you have a messenger and you essentially persuade them, you've wasted your persuasion, by the way. You persuaded them, but then they go, and it kind of just trickles out. Maybe they get it done, or maybe they don't, or whatever. But it takes so much energy and adds time into the cycle. And it goes back, you read any sales book and people talk about, going to the decision maker, but it's more than that. It's more than just going to the decision maker, and there's more to it than that, right? And there needs to be more said about that, and the why about why you go to the decision maker and why that's important. And one of those things is just strictly persuasion, Yeah,
you got to look at, like, if you've received an email, hey, thanks for all your hard work, but we've decided to go in a different direction, because they were cheaper or they were local or they were blah. odds are that email came from someone that you shouldn't have been directly in contact with. It's probably not the person in power, and like it's probably because you allowed a filter.
Yeah.
And so that's why, like, when you're so impersonal to the person who's in charge, that all they have is a number and some writing, that is not a thing that will persuade. And to that degree, you're relying on, like Robert's saying, you're relying on the messenger to persuade for you. And it's so.
It's a risky sale. It's a danger.
Yeah.
It's a risky and dangerous sale. But when you look at it, and if you do your job effectively and you get to the right person, you establish the right person, and you've done your job to persuade the right person. It's very hard to change that person's mind. If you've done your job and you've persuaded them and they've made a decision, it's over. The thing is happening, I think a lot of people, I guess, get back off or get afraid, or they think you need to go bottom up and different things like that. I don't really know, but I would advise you against wasting your persuasion on the wrong people, and understanding that persuasion is a bit of an X factor. It's unbelievably important in your sales cycle, but deliver your persuasion to the right person.
Yeah, I do, but at the same time, and correct me if I'm wrong here, man, but the way I think about it is this: you should persuade that person at the gate, but don't fool yourself into thinking you've like somehow made a step ahead. It is good to have a cheerleader. It is good to have someone who goes and says, "I just talked to Ben, and I think it's a good idea." And then that actual decision maker goes, "Yeah, he just called me, and I agree with you." Right? That's the way I look at it. I don't know.
I don't look to comment on that. I don't doubt that, and I'm not saying don't do that. And I'm not saying like always have your customer service game on, always be selling, right? Always be closing, always be persuading, right? These are all important. And yes, the whether it's gatekeeper or some other person or whatever, everybody's important in their own role. But ultimately you've got to go to the right person, whatever that means for your business. For my business, it might be the CEO, it might be the COO, or it could be an executive vice president. It could be a lot of different people. But it has to be the right person, and that is ultimately the person you have to persuade. Are there people along the way that you have to persuade? Absolutely, sure, of course. But ultimately, when it comes to closing, and that was kind of the theme towards the end of the year, we were talking a lot about closing and things related to closing. Ultimately, the persuasion has to be done with the right person. And it's interesting because even in our own company, like somebody's trying to get to me and sell something, it's like once my mind is made up, or once I've been persuaded,
that's what's going to happen.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's just happening. And there could be other people that have been persuaded internally and they bring something to me, but I'm still going to challenge it. I'm still going to challenge it because I haven't been persuaded. And so you're relying on that other person to come to me and try and persuade me. And I just think it's incredibly powerful. And from my own experience, I think this is incredibly important and vital points in terms of selling. I spend my time persuading the right person, right? And I don't let anything get in the way, any person or anything get in the way from me getting to that person so I can persuade them. And I think when you look at your own persuasion game, I think it's very important. Obviously, when I talk about persuasion, we're talking about driving confidence, sort of winning their heart and mind, all those different things that lead to trust and confidence, which is where sales happens, but that has to be done with the right person. And I think it's incredibly dangerous to have some other person, rely on some other person to try and do that for you. It's either going to take longer, it's going to take more effort, or it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So I think that's the message. That's episode 99. Love to hear your comments. You can put them in the comments section. If you have any questions about it, we can go into depth more. Plan on show 100 for you, and if you like the show, obviously subscribe right there and hit like, and of course share it on social. Okay, thanks.